Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from everywhere you are. I'm so happy to be here with another session with the Microsoft Zero to Hero. Today, we have a great session. Before to start and kick off the session, let me share some information, other slide with you. Today we have Massimo to be here about the Azure Container App. Also, he wants to talk and present the great topic and amazing topic. And actually, let me talk about a little about the Microsoft community. Learn community is a set of content, learning content about the Microsoft technology, Azure technology. You can choose the learning content based off your role, based off the certificate, and you can join from aka.ms Microsoft Learn community. There are a lot of great news about the AI skill challenge or new cloud challenge. I will share this news with you in our social channel. We have two great amazing calendar. This August calendar, we have a lot of session. All of previous session uploaded on our YouTube channel. And this is our September calendar. You can find in the LinkedIn or other social media. Please register, miss your seat about this is the great session, great topic, a lot of things you want to learn. And the last slide is our code of conduct. Be aware of other, be friendly and passionate, be welcoming and respectful, be open to all question and viewpoint, be understanding of difference, be kind and considerate to others in the chat, in the questions or other comments. And the time is to add Massimo to a stage. Hello, Massimo.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to being here.
Yeah, oh, nice, nice. Thanks to accepting our request. And the topic is very interesting, Massimo, and Azure Container. And I think a lot of participants waiting to start your presentation. Just for your information, other guys can ask your question in the chat. End of the session, we will answer your question. And actually, we can select the best question as a winner. We will provide Microsoft exam voucher discount 50% for fundamental and advanced Microsoft certificate.
Okay, great.
Yeah, now I add your slide in the stage and yeah, everything
Okay,
is fine.
so let's
Great.
get started. Yeah, okay, that's wonderful. Okay, today in this session we will talk about how we see how to build quickly build an API, a data API using Data API Builder, Azure Container Apps, and Azure API Management. So we'll start the story and we'll bring everything together at the end of our session. My name is Massimo Crippa. I'm working for Codit, a company based in Belgium and in other countries in Europe. I'm a lead architect at Codit, and over there we are having so much fun building up cloud native solution using the Microsoft technology stack. Here you have my contact. Feel free to contact me, to reach out whenever you want to talk about technology and Azure as a stack for your application. So today we will tell the story of a company, a story of DataSprint. So DataSprint, they are facing some bottleneck because they want to expose the data to their partners, but they are using all the style of data sharing. So all the style of data sharing mechanism. For example, you can imagine flat file or these kind of things. But on every time that they have a new partner, every time that they want to expose this data to the outside world, it's quite a time-consuming task because they have, for every single partner, onboard this partner, they need to allow staff resources to manage this onboarding, and they would like to have something really off the shelf, a couple of configuration and BIM. We are up and running. So this is the story, the requirements of data sprints. So at the end of the day, the goal of this fictional company is to surface those data sets, so that data that is available in their company, to the outside world in a secure way, performant way, and scalable way. The data is already prepared. It's already ready for external use. So you can imagine that if you had the raw data, this data went through different steps, and everything is filtered and well prepared to go to the outside world. And this is done in form of SQL view eventually. The access to this data is, for this case, is read-only. So me as a customer at a data sprint, I need to just get to fetch this data, but not change the data. The data is immutable. And data sprint want an interoperable format. They don't want to have something that is niche. They would like to use something which is recognized as a standard. As I said, okay, data has to be secure. So the access has to be controlled. And at the sprint, they want to have an easy way, an automated way to deploy and develop this data access every time that a new projection, a new portion of data needs to be moved to the upper level. And as a final requirements, they don't want their developers to go through a complex learning procedure. So they would like to have a quick an easy way to start also for their development team. So this is where we are starting, and let's see where we will end up by the end of the day, at the end of the session. The approach that we are going to have is the Azure Pass. So that's our choice, and we want we want to achieve for data sprint. We want to innovate faster. So in this way, we want to, again, the speed is one of the key element here. We want to leverage the services and all of the components and all of the out of the shelf and out of the box capability of Azure to, at the end of the day, reduce the development time. We want to optimize the cost. We want to pay as less as possible. And we want, or if you want, we want to utilize the resources that we have at our best. We don't want to waste CPU. We don't want to waste disk and all of these kind of things. And one of the last things why we are choosing Azure Pass, also because it gives to our developers the confidence to roll out a secure solution, a solution that is performant, a solution that is able to adapt in case of failure. So for these three motivations, we decide to use Azure Pass. That's the best solution for us. Now, let's go one by one into those principles and see how we solve it. So innovate faster. So what we are going to use for this use case to innovate faster, we are using Azure Data API Builder, something that we can get off the shelf. It's an open source tool that has been launched in 2023, been declared generally available in May this year. And this tool allows us to take some data portion, in this case in SQL or Cosmos or MySQL, and turn that data table or view instantly into a REST or a GraphQL endpoint. The very interesting thing is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to develop pagination, sorting, filtering, or relationship in the case of GraphQL. Data API Builder gives us those features off the shelf ready to be used. As I was saying, it works with different data stores from a SQL to non-SQL like Cosmos DB. And what is great, one of the things that Data Sprint was asking us, it's built with security in mind. So I can leverage, for example, the Azure Active Directory or Entra ID and the OAuth, let's say, standard to authenticate the people that are, or the partners that are going to access to my APIs. I can also use, we will see in a second, what is called DAB policy to also have a second level of authorization after, of course, authentication. It's easy to deploy. You can get it as a NuGet package. You can run it on your local machine. You can use it with the cloud. You can use it with a database on premises, and it can also is also available as containerized image that also brings some benefits to when it's about of rolling out a specific version, and also tried out locally. Now let's see how this data API builder works. As I said, it's just it's a simple tool. It's a configuration only tool. There is nothing to be developed. So if you want, and I will not talk in this session about GraphQL. We'll only talk about a REST endpoint. Why? Because they wanted the data sprint an interoperable format, and REST APIs, or if you want JSON API over HTTP, are the most used, is one of the most used and more interoperable technologies that we have these days. How can I create a REST endpoint on top of my SQL database? By just having a configuration file where I declare what I want to expose and where is my data source. So I will say, we'll see in a second, take this table, take this view from this SQL and turn it instantaneously into a REST endpoint. And then there will be some, the engine of DAB will create a sort of an in-memory abstraction, and then will be available easily as a REST endpoint. Simple as it is, we will see it very soon. How, I said that it's available as a NuGet package and also as a container. How can I get started with the tool? I can use a .NET install to get this data API builder on my development machine. Then I need a connection string. I need to decide, supposing that database I have 10 tables, 20 view. I need to say, okay, which kind of view I want to expose. So it's built with security in mind, we said, and it's important. It does not expose all the tables that we have or all the view out of the box. It exposes only only the tables that we specify, and also for the one we also define which kind of permission. And then at the last point, you just run dub start, and it's ready to go. So let's before going into details, I would just want to say that generally speaking, taking a database and exposing as it is as a public endpoint is a very bad practice, or it's if you want, it's an anti-pattern. But in this case, why? For example, because of the tight coupling from your API interface and the database. Sometimes you exposing field that you don't want to expose. You need to change. Most of the time you want to change the data type that you have in the database with what you want to expose. So the external model is very different from the model that you have on your database, etc., etc. So in general, every time that you are evaluating a new tool, make sure that you take your time to understand how to use and how to avoid the misuse. In this case, as we said at the beginning, the data has already been processed. The data that we arrive at, the views that we have and we want to expose to the outside world, they are already, let's say, selected. The fields are selected. The fields are managed and changed to make sure that what we want to expose is what we really, is not a really underlying database structure, but is a projection of that data for the outside world. Now, let's before jumping into the demo, here are some details on how edit the DAB configuration file to leverage entry ID, to leverage roles, and which actions are allowed for that specific roles, and then also quickly at the bottom what are called the DAB policies. But I will give a practical example that is easier to understand. Okay, for doing this, we are jumping in a demo mode. Let me bring up my Visual Studio Code, and here we first to understand what we have. We start with a local host, with a demo on my laptop in this case. But first, we are starting from this SQL database where we have some tables and where we have some views, and we might use these DAB customers or other tables here, like special deals and so on. So that's is our starting point. And I just need, as I was saying, a connection string. Now, here on DAB, on localhost, let me look at this script. Okay, I just need a connection string. I clean 1 second my local file, and then, as I was saying, here I need to install my data API builder. In this case, I already have on my machine, but I run it again, the command here. Let's see if it's big enough, but let's come back on this. Just to show to you that here we are running the version 1.2.10. Now, to create, I need a config file, and I can, to create the file, I can use this DAB CLI, the DAB CLI, to do DAB init and pass the connection string. I use the development mode. The development mode will allow me to go and see the logs in my output. Now let me run this DAB init. And here you see that the result of this DAB init, it created this structure, this configuration file that is mainly empty. There are some parameters, general parameters. And then let's go back to my table. I say, okay, I want to add the table special deals with anonymous, so permission, so everyone can access to the data. And then this part, these entities has been added to the configuration. So again, I'm gonna repeat something one more time. I'm not exposing the full database. In this case, I'm only exposing a table. And now I just run locally my tool, and here I see my log. So it's running on the port, on localhost, on port 5000. Now, yeah, it's just a matter to test it. Let's see. Here I can see, let me zoom in a bit. I can call my APIs on a 5000. I can send a GET, and here I see the result on the left. Simple as it is, we get all the special deals that I have in my database. And because when we create the DAB init here, let me get it back here for the sake of better reading. So because we call it with the parameter host mode with development, we are able to see the SQL query that is created under the hood to fetch the data from our database. I can continue with some more calls. I can then fetch a single ID. That's number one. I can just go and filter. I want all the special deals that have a discount percentage greater than 5%. And that's the one example on how I do the filtering. I can filter some data. I can also select which field to be, returned to our caller. In this case, I just only want 2, so not everything, only a couple of ones. So I can also reduce the number of data that is passing through the wire. Then I can create new fields, etc., etc. I can create. I create the 28, then I can delete the 28, and so on. So very, very easily, I can, then this is the way we can change using a patch verb. We can change something. So this is how it works very fast and very quickly off the shelf. That's what we want to do. We want to innovate faster and not get lost in rewriting something like filtering, something like selection and paging, and so on. This is one example. But then one thing more we said about security and integration with Active Directory. Let me stop this 1 second, and I go up on one folder when I have my, so 0, I have my Active Directory. In order to call an API that is secure, first I need to get a token. So I can call it this get token to have something to authenticate my calls towards these APIs. Let me select my user, and I will copy this token here in this 1 second, this jot token into this folder, and I go on. Let me take this into the stream. I go here and I can just check on jot.io. If I'm able to type properly, I can just see here. I can analyze the content of this token. In this case, this token has been, let's say, issued to Massimo Crippa, and I have a couple of roles. In this case, operational and management. Those are the roles that we will see in 1 second to filter, to decide how can I access to the data, what I am authorized to do with this token. Now, with this in mind, let's go and see the security part. Here I'm changing. Let me clear a little bit this part. Clear, and I just go back to on the local host. Okay, and here I will recreate a new config file with some security in mind. So let me do it again. I delete the file. And now I do the init by passing the reference to my identity provider, in this case, Enter ID or Azure ID, if you prefer. Okay, and then I'm saying, okay, I want to expose this DAB customer, and if you belongs from the group executive, you can read everything. If you are management, you can create objects. If you are management, you can read, but you can only read something that is not that has a buying group name not equal to Tailspin Toys. And here another example: if you are not authorized, if you are anonymous, that's first line, what kind of data you will be able to see? Just only the items that have the category name, customer category name equal to supermarket. This is not necessary, but I just want also to have an anonymous example to see how the things change if you are using or not using the token. Now, let's this will create, as before, my JSON configuration file with my tables and with my here authentication and authorization configuration. And then the last step is to run a DAB start that will host my APIs on localhost. And then let's try it out. This is my token. I'm gonna put it somewhere here. This is my jot token. First example here, if I call API customer without any token, I will be anonymous, so I will be able to see something that belongs to supermarket. Here we are. That's how it works. As a charm, then I can add the token to my API calls, specifying the role, because I have multiple roles, as we saw before on the jot.io. And in this case, I'm able to read without exception, etc., etc. I have different things. If I go on management, I can get, but I will be able to read everything except some, let's say, slice of the data. Here we are. And we said, okay, a management role cannot delete anything for whatever reason. Then if I call a delete, will be blocked by the DAB authorization engine with HTTP code 403 as expected. So everything as it should be in a very, let's say, quick and efficient way. So that was the first demo to get an idea on how this tool works, if the tool fits for your usage or not. It's not because you need some data access and you can use DAB. You need to use DAB for everything. You might use for a specific use case in a bigger solution. Up to you to decide if it makes sense for you and the kind of use that might bring value to your solution. Now let's move on with our journey. We want to do more with less. So we want to, in other words, optimize the cost. So we saw that we can host quickly or expose this data set that the Datasprint needs to the outside world using DAB, but my customer needs to access to this data, so I need to put somewhere in the internet, or I need to host this API. And Azure Container Apps is the easiest way to run a container on Azure. In this case, we saw in a console, but the same things I can do with a container. So if I use Azure Container Apps, I can focus, in this case, on hosting this container and not on the infrastructure. The infrastructure is managed by Microsoft. It's built on top of Kubernetes. It's built on top of open source, but we can do something. We can do our application without knowing nothing about Kubernetes. So you remember one of the requirements of Datasprint was to not have a steep learning curve for their developers. In this case, the complexity is abstracted away. From a cost point of view, also, I don't have this cost to train my developers, but I also don't have I can avoid cost by scaling the runtime to 0. I can say, okay, you know what, like you see in this picture on the right, I can, if I don't use, if my customers don't use, in this case, the customer endpoint, I can scale to 0. So, and not paying for that piece of infrastructure. How can we, so we said that this DAB is working like just mainly with a configuration file plus a runtime. So how can we configure Azure Container Apps to make this happen? I need to create what is called Azure Container Apps environment, that it defines the set of properties where my application will be able to run. Then I have to link a storage account to my Azure Container environments, because then in this storage account, I will load my DAB configuration file with the policies, with the tables or the views that I want to expose, with the authentication and authorization details that I need. And then I create my Azure Container Apps app that is connected to, that will use the DAB image to run the DAB, the API builder, and that's it. And then it can be scaled to 0 if necessary. So in this way, we will have something that by scaling to 0 will be easier. It will be zero cost, but also fast to deploy. Now, another thing that we could do, okay, but I scale to 0, but sometimes what if I need I need more power because for whatever reason, okay, I mean, because our customer needs to get more data, they needs to get it more frequently. Okay, what we can do, and especially we want to separate customer A from customer B from customer C. So then every customer can be served in a different way. Now, and in a more efficient way, I can create one container apps per customer or per data portion that I want to expose. And then in this way, I isolate customer 1, but I also isolate the data, sort of the data slice. So every data slice, or if you want, every customer can scale independently and can scale based on event if I want. So, and this event might be the amount of calls that a specific customer execute towards a specific endpoint. And here we see in a second how we configure. We want to make it simple, so we make it standardized. Just by configuration, I say, okay, I want to expose customers, I want to expose suppliers, I want to expose special deals, I want to expose my dataset C. I define what is the dataset, and then min and max in terms of instances, and all the rest will be done by convention. Now, another great things of DAB in terms of cost and also resiliency is that DAB, we can use caching. In this case, caching is powered by a great library called Fusion Cache. It's also an open source project that, thanks to Fusion Cache, DAB implement in cache memory, but tomorrow is also ready for a second level cache like Redis, for example. And thanks to the cache, you can improve performance. You can have a reliable and stable performance. When you have a problem with the downtime or temporary downtime, a cache could also protect your database and give an overall better user experience and stable response time. So it's a sort of a leveling, as you can see at the bottom. It gives you this stable experience. So this is not a session about caching, so we'll move on, but it's just another tools that you have in your tool belt to decide which kind of, or to configure the user experience that you want to provide. Now, another demo. So let's see how to host my DAB. We saw it in localhost. Now let's see in the cloud. Now let me bring back my Visual Studio Code. Here I can clear up what my previous demo, and I can move to this 01 simple publishing, and I have here. Okay, so here we are in 01 simple publishing. I can deploy in this way my solution on container apps. But while this deployment is running, let's look a little bit what we are going to do, because we already explained. So we do some infrastructure configuration, again creating a log analytics, creating a storage account, creating then an application app service environment. That's where we will create our app, and then we host these. We run a bicep to create our Azure Container App. Let's look this, for example. So this is a very simple bicep file to create a container apps. What is important, of course, to link the app to the environment where this app will stay. Here is the link to the container image of the Azure Data API Builder with the tag. In this case, I'm using latest, I believe, but okay, it's a demo. Latest, you see here, I just deployed the latest tag. The important thing is to link, so to define the volumes where you will put your file, your configuration file, and then to mount here the storage, and pass to the container the path to the file as an argument. In this way, 3 simple steps, you will be able to host your DAB into the Azure Container Apps. So our script is completed. We will see, before going to see what happened in the cloud. Let's run a couple of tests here. Now, instead of running on localhost, I will call. I will call my simple IC3, etc., West Europe Azure Container Apps, and then I can call my API. So I have an FQDN, so an address in the cloud that I can use to call, and the experience is the same. I just got the data as it should be. I can, as before, filter if I want by category name. I can use the select, etc., etc. Now let's look what happened on Azure. What I created was called So Simple. That's how I call this container app. Let's go here, and we do have So Simple on customer. We can go and see that I'm running, I believe, only 2 replicas. So I have 2 instances of the same container. That's for say availability. If something goes wrong with, or I can divide the load with these 2 replicas. I can also implement a better update if I have more than one, more availability. And the other things that we can see if we go into the in monitoring, I have this log stream and the same experience. So let me clear. Is it coming up? Refresh. It seems a little bit a user a problem with the portal. Let me just give a refresh on the portal. Otherwise, we move on. But the same way we were able to see the logs on. Okay, here we are. The same way we were able to see the logs on premises. We can also have the same experience in the cloud. So if I call this 2-3 times, what I'm doing right now, and I will be able to go here and see exactly what happens. So I can see the SQL query. If something goes wrong, I can debug my application. So, and if you want to also go a little bit more into details, this DAB is all based on that configuration file. You can log in interactively into your container. So this is the file system of my container. I can go on the folder dab config, I think I call it, and let's do clear. And then, it's not called dab config. There is no such a file directory. Let's see. Okay. Strange. Okay. But anyway, it was just to explore explore a little bit the configuration file, but to show to you that is the same that we have in that we saw before. Let's move on with this. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to show that it's with few steps we can get this solution up and running. At the end, for our customer, what is important, just have an addressable URL where I can call my API. Now, this was the way how we can deploy, let's say, in an optimal way because of scaling to 0 and also having multiple replicas, so I can scale up and scale down, and all of this way also with caching to keep the cost under control. Now, we saw how to have this easy infrastructure, how to save cost. Now let's see how can our, let's say, developers operate confidently. If we create for every customer, as we were saying, one endpoint, I will end up with this situation. So customer, I will have something, an endpoint for customers, an endpoint for suppliers, an endpoint for special deals, an endpoint for vehicle temperatures. If you go back here, or when we were calling this, you see I have So Simple customers, and this is an endpoint just for the customer view. If I have additional view like one per customer. I will have, you see, my customer, my suppliers, my special deals, a lot of endpoint, one per set of operation or one per data set to be exposed. That is at the end it results in a bigger space attack, because as much more things I expose, more things I have to keep under control. It's complex to consume. Suppose that suppose the two endpoints are for the same customer. I have to give two addresses. And then people will say, okay, why this complexity for nothing? It's my data, just give me one endpoint. And then all of these endpoints will result in more complexity also at my side when I'm hosting this data, to complexity to maintain these APIs, or this scattered API, if you want. Now, how can we fix it? So the bigger attack surface, we can fix it by turning all of these endpoints from public, from an ACA point of view, into internal. So you see here at the right, okay, this customer will not be addressable anymore from the public internet. So I will not have that address that I used a few seconds ago. That is the first thing. Then how can I fix it? Fix the fact that it's too complex to consume? I will create one new endpoint, one new entry point. It's a gateway, if you want, a sort of proxy that get all the calls, and then we'll redirect this call to the Azure Container Apps that are exposed in internal mode. So I will have a single endpoint, so I don't have to give a lot of endpoints to the customer. And by decoupling my internal implementation with what I expose to the outside world, I can leverage Azure API management to have the governance of that APIs. We'll see in a second. Now, another thing that those Azure PaaS services gives to me, it's a lot of things off the shelf, out of the box, that I can use, yes or no, depending that if I need it or not. So here I have some example. We said that when we expose a full table, at the end of the day, we have a get method, a put method, a patch method, and all of these methods. But maybe in our case, and not maybe, Data Spring, they only want to expose the get. They don't want to expose any possibility. They don't want to give to the customer any possibility to change the data. Okay, so then I can, as I'm mentioning here, I can control, leveraging API management, which endpoint to expose or not. I can implement, if I want, a throttling policy as well in API management and other kind of security policy, but also I can implement a resiliency. That can be done in Azure Container Apps, leveraging the resiliency feature that is powered by Dapper, but also using API management. There is a resiliency feature that is attached to the objects that are called backends in API management. And then another example here, if I have errors that are coming from the DAB, I can block these errors on API management, so make sure that those errors, those internal details are not propagated all the way back to my customer, and more. So these features can come from Azure Container Apps per se, but also from Azure API management. So I see that the time is passing. Let's go to the final demo. I already to just give an idea of what we have. So let's see if we need to go to the 03 or not. We can just maybe make it a little bit simpler and short. So when I deploy here, I can, in this way, I can create one view per customer. The first part is not changed because I need an application environment. In API management, to run an API management as ingress, what I mean with ingress is if I want to run API management in Container Apps, to route the traffic from the outside world to these internal containers, I might want to use or I need to use what is called the self-hosted gateway. So in this way, I'm just configuring the self-host gateway, and I will then an API, an empty API, and then I will add these operations to the API. And here by default, by design, if you want, or by convention, I only expose the get. So I'm not running this, but because I already did. At the end of the day, this is the, let's say, result. I'm grouping by type. I will have one Azure Container App per, let's say, operation or per dataset to expose. And then I have this ingress that is my, the one that is routing. So that is routing the call. If I go on my, so you see these are consumption only, so I pay only for what I use, and they're all private except this ingress that is public. You will see also in the DNS name, when something is private, something is added into the DNS name, it calls to internal, and this is not addressable for the outside world. My ingress will not have an internal things, but he will have an just as before this kind of addresses. And now we can call it as before. So in this way, we can just call our ingress and our operation. In this case, we can get our customers, and then we can filter, etc., etc. So we can also go to at the same endpoint. We don't only have customers, but we also have suppliers. So it's a single endpoint to serve everything like before there were different endpoints. Now, another thing I want to show here in this is some policies that we use at API management just to make it more secure. So I can go to my APIs that I'm exposing, like with only the for get, so the for get operation, no more updates. I don't want to expose the thing. So if I don't expose it, I don't have to secure it. If I expose it, I have to make sure that those things are used properly. But also for these get things, I implement here an example of rate limiting. So if I use more than a certain amount of time, in this case more than 60 calls in a period of 1 minute, I will be blocked. And here you can see something that is important, and I always advise to colleagues and customers to throttle not only when something is going fine, when I have a 200, but also throttle even harder when you have a failure. That can be very good, a very good approach, and can let's say save yourself from bigger problems. Here another things to mention is that I'm using the IP address for to decide how to throttle to group my throttling procedure, policy. But sometimes when you are using a JOT token, it's better to use a claim into the token, so it will save from some other problems depending on which kind of application you are having. And one last thing, if I still have a few minutes, is for these vehicle temperatures, I set up the resiliency policy that is coming from Azure. Is a feature of Azure Container Apps that is leveraging Dapper. I put here a little picture. It's you will have something on top of your container. So suppose this is my vehicle temperatures. So it's called vehicle temperatures container, and it's something that sits before that container, and it will protect that container if something is wrong. In this example, I say, okay, if there is a connection timeout or a response timeout, if something takes more than 2 seconds, returns a timeout. So I don't have to manage the timeout in my Azure Container Apps. And the other things is a circuit breaker. If I have more than 2 errors, let's avoid to take the container app instance out of rotation, take the replica out of rotation, and route the call only to the healthy container. So how can I see this one in action quickly? Because these vehicle temperatures, if I go on revision and replica, is scaling to 0. So today, right now, this is not available. So if I call it, the Azure Container Apps will, let's say, resume it. It will take it back to life. Now it's it's not running. It will take some time to take this container back to life. Okay, that can be called a cold start. And because this is protected by this resiliency policy, I will get some behavior. So there will be some timeout because it will take more than 2 seconds. Let's see what is the behavior. I just run here this 150 calls on that endpoint. Let me do this. Control R. Okay. So you see that I got a couple of timeout, and now is and then everything works 200. But let's see what we have at the beginning, because the Azure Container Apps is taking time to come up. I don't let my customer, my caller, wait for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. I quickly answer with 504 that are 2 timeouts. Okay, then what happened? I said that after, where it is, so resiliency, after 2 consecutive errors, just take out of rotation the things, the containers that are not okay. So here the circuit breaker kicks in, and with some 503, and when everything is ready, I got 500. So in this way, if my consumer implement a retry, you are able to have a quick answer, not a hanging connection, and have an overall giving an overall better experience to the customer. And then because I call 150 times, you remember that there were a throttling policy. And then if I call it too much, then I have a 429. That means too many requests. You can see that here is clean. Okay, with this one, it brings me to the end of this session. So what did we see? We had we moved from a situation like this with a lot of endpoints, something complex to maintain, complex to secure, to something very simple, a single endpoint for operation, and also a better governance, security, and availability that we are providing to our customer using Azure API management, and also using the out-of-the-box feature of Azure Container Apps. So that brings me as a final step to the takeaways of this session. So we achieve a quick time to market by using that tool. Zero development. We just use this data API builder. We had a REST endpoint that is a new format, is more interoperable, and there is a large ecosystem of tools that can interact with this format. We optimize cost choosing Azure Pass. We scale to 0 if needed. No learning curve little learning curve, because Azure Container Apps abstract away a lot of complexity, and we can also reduce the database access, so we can reduce the cost over there and the pressure on the database using caching. Finally, the last things, Entra ID, API management, and all the Dapper policy. It gives our developers the tool to go public with this kind of solution, but with a peace of mind. And that's the three things that the three main steps that we were able to achieve, and to give an answer to the requirements of data sprint. That's all of the things that I prepared for you for today. If you have any question, I would be happy to take that.
Great, Massimo. Thanks for a great and amazing demo and data we share you with us. Actually, guys, you have any question, you can ask in the chat, maybe. It seems that there is no any question or other comments. Actually, in the future, you have any question, you can connect with Massimo in the LinkedIn or other ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be a pleasure. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so if whatever you need, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again, Massimo. Thank you guys to join this session. If there is no question, yeah, we can take end of this live session. Thank you again.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, bye bye.